Welcome to the University of California, Riverside. As a public institution, it's vital that all students, faculty, staff, and even community members understand how free speech and the First Amendment can affect their time at UCR. So in this video, we're going to discuss it. What is free speech? What sorts of activities does it protect? We'll then dive into what that might look like at UCR. Let's start by reading the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. In its entirety, it says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. What we're focusing on here is the specific section about freedom of speech. So what types of speech and activity does the First Amendment protect? It essentially means that the government may not jail, fine, or impose civil liability on people or organizations based on what they say or write, generally. We'll talk about what's not protected later in this training. As a public institution, that means UCR will be content neutral in how they handle free speech. This means that if a speaker is brought to campus, the content of their talk will not be used to decide if they should or shouldn't be allowed on campus, for example. So what speech isn't allowed? Speech that is not protected by the First Amendment includes fighting words, incitement of illegal activity, true threats, and harassment. You may have heard the term hate speech, but it's actually really complicated, as the First Amendment sometimes protects speech that may be hateful or offensive. If a speaker says something awful, it's still their right to do so. There are limits on this. One limit is when the speech turns into inciting acts of violence. If a speaker says something calling people to action and that action is going to put people in danger, that sort of speech is not allowed. Free speech can also border on harassment. If it crosses that line by truly interfering with someone's life, such as work or education, then it is not protected speech. So if a professor says something to a student that is disrespectful, it may not violate policy. But continued speech that becomes harassment, that jeopardizes their ability to succeed in a course, may not be allowed. We'll talk about harassment and free speech later. Now let's hear from a student about their thoughts on free speech.
Hi there, my name is Myra and I'm a fourth year here at UCR. Other students are going to tell you about their transition into UCR by telling you things like the classes are tougher or you have to start doing homework on your own time without anyone looking over your shoulder. But I'll tell you a little bit about my transition into UCR. I remember walking through the center of campus here by the bell tower, and I think it was the first week of classes. There was a guy holding a huge sign that said something pretty obscene. I was shocked. I thought the campus would do something, like why was no one stopping this guy? So I walked over to a group of students who were arguing with this guy, and he turned out to be a roaming self-proclaimed preacher who came to a bunch of college campuses. I started asking questions, and pretty soon I realized why it appeared that nobody was doing anything. See, UCR is a public campus, but that means it's truly public, like even if you're not a student. People can come in and say whatever they want because of the First Amendment. This guy wasn't physically attacking anyone, and he wasn't even directing his yells at anyone in particular. He would just say things about being an abomination, or occasionally he'd make comments about women wearing skimpy clothes and how horrible he thought it was. But I guess it was his freedom to do so. Speech isn't one-sided though. That means we can talk back. I remember I told him that I thought what he was doing was wrong and that he should be ashamed of what he was doing. Other students chimed in too. I even saw some Christian clubs come out and start debating with him because they thought his actions were hurtful too. I even saw some staff come and check up with students who were really upset. If you don't want to talk or debate though, it's also your freedom to walk away. This guy showed up to rile people up, and you know what upset him the most? When we walked away. He was yelling to nobody here by the bell tower, and eventually after a few minutes, he left. So if you're shocked like me when you see that sort of thing, remember you have options. You can either use your freedom of speech and tell them exactly what you think, or you can walk away, have them tire themselves out, and they'll eventually leave. What these people want is attention, so don't give it to them. If you're watching this training, I imagine you want to learn more about free speech, and this video is a great first step. Get educated before you stumble upon this scene and don't know what to do. Thanks for listening. Hope this helps.
So like this student, You may find yourself in situations where you'd like to learn more, and watching trainings like this are a good start. This isn't the only training, though. You'll also find videos discussing high profile speakers and events on campus demonstrations and protests, and a video on UCR's principles of community and harassment policies, which have a complicated relationship with the First Amendment. So browse these other trainings as well as our website's extensive FAQ section. There's also a resources page, so if you'd like to ask a follow-up question or get more information, you can find the right people to reach out to. Thanks for watching.